David here with Figboot on Pens. Today I have a fairly new pen for you from Benu. Benu is the Russian-based company who over the last year has become a little bit more widely available and has a number of very interesting pens in their lineup. Recently they added a new series to that lineup, and it's one of those pens that we will be taking a look at today. It is the Chameleon series, and the pen I have for you today is the Friendly Chameleon. What I'm going to do is go over the parts and the features of the Benu Friendly Chameleon, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and then provide a writing sample. And stay tuned to learn how you can enter the drawing to win this very pen, courtesy of the good folks at Benu who provided this pen to me for review and to give away. On a side note, before we get to the pen, I did have an interesting opportunity this week to visit the Goulet Pen Company and spend some time with Brian Goulet. We ended up shooting a video that'll be on his channel coming out in the next couple of weeks, and then I'll have something on my channel in a couple of weeks. So look for those things coming out in the near future. The Benu is based out of Moscow, Russia. If the Benu brand is new to you and you'd like to learn a little bit more about the brand in general, you might want to check out my review of the Benu Blue Frost, where I go over that in more detail. The pen arrives in this box. It has some writing on the box. It might be Russian or Cyrillic, but I couldn't translate any of the words. I'm not sure exactly what it says, but it at least looks nice. And it's not like the fake Latin either that sometimes they use in copyright. Inside the box, we have some warranty and use info. And then the pen is housed in this little paper sleeve. And then underneath the box has some shredded paper that kind of serves as a little extra shipping protection. And here we have the pen, the Benu Friendly Chameleon. This line is called the Chameleon because each of the pens in this line have a color-changing aspect to them. I'm not sure how well it shows up here in this light, but depending on the angle you look at this model, I'll kind of twist it back and forth, it really varies between a vibrant blue and a medium purple. The effect is rather cool. The Chameleon is a recent addition to Benu's offering, and it's available in a number of different colors and complexities. What I mean by that is that this model here is more of a kind of a solid, straightforward material, but other versions in the line have more depth and additional glittery elements to the material as well. I felt this one might be the best to show off, though. While compared to the other models, this one might seem a bit plain at first glance, but when you look at it up close here, you can really see the particles in there that really contribute to the shimmer and the depth that it provides. Let's take a look at the cap. The end of the cap comes to a multifaceted point. The facets then continue down to a six-sided barrel that has 3 wider facets and then 3 thinner ones. The cap actually transitions to this rather wide plastic band. It has ridges as well as having the Benu name on it. Benu actually refers to the name of an Egyptian deity who is linked with the sun and creation and rebirth. This is actually a picture of Benu. And the deity is actually spelled slightly different. It's B-E-N-N-U with an extra N. There is a smooth transition to the barrel, which essentially mirrors the cap, but it's about ½ an inch longer. There are also 3 indentations here on the barrel, which are part of the posting mechanism for the pen. The end of the barrel comes to a faceted point identical to the cap. Now, the cap twists off, and I will say that from like this point right here, if you match those up, that the cap is actually, or the barrel is actually longer than the cap, but for some reason with this longer band in here, I kind of get easily confused. So when I'm uncapping the pen, for some reason I get confused as to which end is the cap and which end is the barrel until I kind of slightly take it apart. You know, it should be easy. The band is on the cap, but with the extra length here, you know, that it's just almost like an optical illusion. Maybe it's just me, but I've always kind of felt that when I uncapped it. But once you do uncap the pen and figure out which part is the barrel and which part is the cap, you have this silver-colored steel nib. It is a bit on the small side, but I feel it's size appropriate to the rest of the pen. This is a Schmidt nib. It's stamped with M for this medium nib and says Schmidt Iridium Point. I like how the ink stayed in the letters after I inked up the pen. It just kind of looked cool. I do find this medium nib to be a bit on the firm side, but it's fairly smooth for a steel nib. I don't find it to have excessive feedback. It's very pleasant. And here's a look at the plastic feed. The section is very slightly flared at the end and then slowly angles up into the threads. The gap between the threads are a bit longer than on most other pens. Doesn't really cause any issue, but it's just something that I noticed. The threads transition into the barrel where we have about an inch here where that it just slightly angles up. And it might look a little bit odd, but I understand the reasoning for this part here from a design perspective. If this part didn't exist and the barrel began here at this point, then it might not be that comfortable in the hand. This is a rather large step up right here to the rest of the barrel, and if it were up at this point, then I think it would more than likely impede your grip. The back half of the barrel tapers down. About halfway down, each of the three thinner facets have this groove. These grooves are part of the posting mechanism. When you post the cap kind of gently snaps on to those grooves. And when the cap is posted, it's very secure. These grooves help ensure the cap isn't going anywhere. But I do find that the cap is on here rather tight. So when you remove the cap using your two hands, you get that moment where you have to kind of tug on both ends. And then when it releases, you have to be careful kind of not to stab the person next to you. So that I find that removing the cap with a single hand, kind of like that, is a bit easier and a bit safer. The Chameleon isn't the largest pen, but I do find it to be very comfortable in the hand. The section is a bit on the thinner side, and I personally wouldn't want it any thinner, but as is the nib, I feel the section is size appropriate for this pen. The pen is plenty long enough for me to use unposted, but the cap is light, and you can use it posted, and I don't feel that it backweights this pen at all. The price for the pens in the Chameleon line can vary. This friendly model sells for $90. There are other models that sell for $110 and others at $120 based on the complexity of the material. At this $90 price point, this is a very interesting pen. This is another pen that I probably would have never purchased for myself, but I'm glad to have the opportunity to have played around with it for the last month or so. You'll see in the writing sample, but the nib performs very well. The pen has a unique and interesting design, and the material has a fantastic color changing element to it. I mean, if Pelikan came out with a special edition M800 with this color changing material, I mean, people would freak out in excitement. They would love it. So at $90, I feel that this is a fair price for this specific pen. Thanks go out again to Benu for providing this pen for review and for giveaway. In regard to the giveaway, all you need to do is be a subscriber to my channel and leave a comment here on YouTube. Today is Sunday, March 25th, and you have until the end of day on Tuesday, March 27th to enter. At that time, a commenter will be chosen at random to win this very pen. In regard to the comment topic, this pen is made in Russia, which is kind of a non-traditional country of origin in regard to fountain pens. Let me know what your favorite pen is from a non-traditional country. That is a country other than the United States or Germany or Japan. I'd be interested to hear what you feel. A few meetings back, the pen club I attend had a meeting focused on Asian pens not from Japan. It was interesting to see some lesser-known pens and manufacturers. So, in regard to the giveaway, please leave a comment, but the topic is not required. It's just a suggestion. Okay, now it's time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Benu Chameleon. Here it is with a Kaweco Skyline Sport. Then here it is with a Lamy All-Star. And then here it is with a Pilot Prera. In regard to some other pens, here it is with a Diplomat Aero. Then here it is with a TWSBI Diamond 580. And then I had mentioned before, earlier this week, that I took a visit to Goulet Pens, and I couldn't walk away from there without an actual pen. So what I picked up was something special, which was the Pilot Custom Urushi, which barely even fits in the frame here. This is a remarkable pen that I will definitely be going into more later, and it is a rather large pen. So here it is in comparison to the Pilot Custom Urushi. So here we go with the writing sample for the Benu Chameleon. And this is the friendly model. This is a medium steel nib, and the ink that I'm using today is Colorverse Cat. This is the bottle that it comes in. It's a very cute bottle. I'm actually going to be doing look for a review of some Colorverse inks coming up here in the very near future. They come in smaller and larger bottles in the same box, and this is the smaller bottle. It's just a 15 milliliter bottle. It's very cute, and I'll go into much more detail about this particular ink. But this is what the ink looks like, and it is a what they call, it's not a glimmering ink, they call it a glistening ink. And it's hard to see here, but there is just a slight glisser to it, kind of a glistening to it. So I wouldn't necessarily call it shimmering, so I think that's an appropriate term for it. But in regard to some other colors, I think it looks somewhat similar to an Omos blue. It's kind of a nice, deep, solid blue. Or even something like Noodler's Liberty's Elysium, which is a Goulet exclusive, that are all kind of like deeper, more solid blues. Okay, here we go with the rest of the writing sample. Okay, that, like I mentioned before, the nib is a stainless steel nib. You're not going to get tons of line variations out of here. You can get a little bit if you press it. That in regard to wetness, I find that this nib is fairly wet. Really haven't had any issues along those lines. And in regard to reverse writing, it lays down a decent extra fine line. I think for a stainless steel nib, that this one performs very well. It's very pleasant. It doesn't have an overabundance of feedback and is fairly smooth. And in regard to some fast writing, the feed has no issue in keeping up whatsoever. So thanks go out to Benu for providing this pen for review and for giveaway. Don't forget to leave a comment in order to win this very pen. I think for the price, it's something very interesting, and I think that the material is something that is unique and adds a lot to this pen. So I think it's definitely worth something checking out, and I'll put a link below in the notes where you can see it directly on Benu's site. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.